Hi everybody, I'm Ryan, this is Roll for Initiative, and this video is about getting back into a campaign after you've taken quite a bit of a break, and specifically from a player's point of view. So at the time of filming this video, last night we jumped back into our main campaign that Dawn runs. And because of vacation and life events and a hurricane and a number of other things, we hadn't played in almost 2 months, and so it had been a little bit. We were all really excited to get back into things, but after that much of a break between sessions, sometimes it can get really difficult. Actually, now that I think about it, it might have been longer than 2 months, because the last time we played anything, we played Tales from the Loop, so it may have been 2.5 months or so since we had played the D&D campaign. But anyway, it had been a long time, and so it made things a little bit interesting. I think obviously some of the difficulties of having that much time between campaigns, or between sessions of a campaign, means that it's easy to forget things. And that certainly happened. I had a tough time remembering what exactly we were doing. Now, I remembered that we had gotten to the White City and that we had found a prison that we were trying to break into, an abandoned prison. But it took me a little while to really remember and be told by Dawn, the DM, and some of the other players, oh, right, that's exactly what it was. The White City, we were there because we were trying to find somebody, but it also had to do with Nodi's backstory. Nodi is played by Pierce, a friend of ours that you can follow at Sorcerer Blob on Twitter and things like that to see what he's getting up to. But it was not only a plot hook, but it was also a side story. And that it was a Bastille that was fashioned into a maze that we had found. I had forgotten all of that stuff. So one of the things that you can really do to help remember what's going on is just ask. We always have a previously on this campaign moment when we start to play. And usually Dawn will ask who wants to remind us what we were doing. Now, I think that's a really nice tool for a DM to use. It allows your players to stay involved. It's not just the one person that takes notes that's always reminding everyone what they're doing. Plus, what I think what's really useful about that is you can see what your players are finding important. You can see what stands out to your players from last session. And you can get what happened last session from their character's point of view. I know for me, sometimes as a GM, you've got so much other stuff going on and the events of the world and the narrative that they don't know about. I think it's nice to ask your players, hey, what do you remember being important? And then take note of what it is that stands out to them. One of the other things as a player that was really helpful was to just take a few minutes before everyone else got in there and remember what my character sounded like, and looking at my sheet and saying, okay, well, what was the last thing that was important to Storm? What was she doing? And what was she hoping to get out of this? And it turns out she was just sort of along for the ride. That's a big part of what she does. She loves adventuring and collecting stories. That's a major part of her backstory. Weaving her story and the story of her tribe, the Blue Forest tribe, into the narrative of these other people that she's adventuring with. And so for me, it was reminding myself of all of that, as well as just, I love character voices. If you listen to any of the stuff that we've done with other channels, I love playing with the different character voices. And so it took me a little while to go ahead and jump back into what it is that Storm sounds like, as well as because she's this sort of nondescript Eastern European, that I didn't want to become a little bit too much like a jester, because we'd been listening to so much Critical Role lately. And so for me, yeah, it was playing around with getting back into the character voice. It's something I love to do. It's a bit of my training from work and all that stuff, so it's a little easier. But that was good. And as we sat around playing, David, our orc paladin, it took him a little bit, and then he found his voice again. And Pierce found Nodi's voice right away. and remembering everything that we were doing. In this past session, we did lean a little bit more on some of the inside jokes that we had. The fact that Nodi is infatuated with David, and David is completely oblivious to his romantic gestures, which usually that's a joke 1 or 2 times a session. It was pretty heavily used in this one. Things were maybe a little bit more meta in that sense. Not meta in the sense of using player knowledge versus character knowledge, but we leaned on some of our old jokes just to sort of get a feel for the party again. I think that that's kind of understandable. For me, I don't want to be a part of a group that's so busy focusing on the fun stuff that we've done in other sessions that we don't do new fun stuff. But this one we leaned on a little harder, but I don't think that there's a problem with that. We also, and this sounds crazy, but it's amazing how many problems it solved, we asked each other things. You know, we did our out of character. This is how we signify that we're talking out of character. We did our out of character thing and just said, wait, why are we doing this? And it was a lot of moments to be like, okay, wait, so who is it that we're looking for? Are we looking for this person? Oh, I have the wrong name. Who is this? It was a lot of just not being afraid to say, it's been a while, remind us what we're doing. And then layering that in to the choices that our characters were making. It made for some fun, goofy moments. Our paladin forgot the name of his deity for a second, and so that was a little silly. It led to kind of a fun, goofy moment, and a couple of us sort of forgot what our different spells or abilities were, and so they popped up halfway through a fight because we forgot that we could do things. I forgot how fast I could run, because Storm, she's really able to book it when she wants to, and so you know, I just missed an opportunity, but no one got on top of each other. What we avoided doing, and I think this is just as important when you've been away from a character for so long, not just what should you do, but what should you avoid? What we really avoided doing was saying, hey, don't forget to do this. Hey, this is how your character works. We stayed away from that. I think that those are things to always avoid. Don't tell other people how their character class works. I think that that's just rude. You know, they're playing their character their way. But when you've been away from it for a while, I think that there's maybe a very natural, helpful inclination that comes from a good place to say, hey, don't forget that you have inspiration that you can give out, or things like that. And maybe there's a fine line there to find, to say, hey, don't forget about this. You haven't done this in a while, and going too far with it and trying to tell people how to play their characters. So I would say, you know, really watch out and avoid that. Don't let the fact that it's been a while be an excuse to fall into that trap. Like so many things, a really strong DM is what helped keep us on track. Dawn was really good at reminding us, this is what you're doing, this is how this works, here's why you're here, this is the person you're tracking down. Now that's not to say that this session was more railroady or anything like that, but we were here, we were focused, there was a time crunch, and Dawn did a really nice job of reminding us of that time crunch, reminding us of how focused our characters were 2.5 months ago, and that helped us really jump back in and find that same level of focus. So things are pretty great in the campaign. We've maybe met a really big bad guy, which is exciting, and we were finally able to confirm we are not the bad guys. We'd been having some hard time figuring out, well, by interrupting these rituals and bringing magic back, are we causing too many problems? But we were able to rescue a major NPC and ask them and say, look, this is what we're doing. Is this okay? Are we making things worse? And that NPC assuaged our fears and said, no. What you're doing is for the best. We put these rituals into place 1,000 years ago, and it's time for them to end. And so that's also a nice little milestone for us as a group that solidified us that, yes, we really are doing things for the best. We're not just bumbling from one adventure to the next. So what do you find useful when you've been away from a character for too long? Or are you regularly a part of groups that can only meet once a month, once every 6 weeks, something like that? Do you have long gaps between sessions of a particular campaign? If you do, I'd love to hear some of the ways that you make sure everyone stays on track and you're using that time that you do have together and you're using it well. Of course, there's the fun social aspect, but there's a story to be told. How do you keep track of that story and make sure that you're telling it in the best possible way? The different tips and tricks that you have, I'd love to hear about them in the comments below. A huge thank you to some of our Patreon patrons, especially a big thanks to Joan and RV, Bryce, to Lainey, and to Sean. They're some of the people that really help make this happen and help us to make more videos and higher quality videos. And if you would like to help us out with that, then head over to patreon.com/rollforinitiative. Check out the perks level. You can get some cool stuff back, and you can be a major contributor to all of the videos that we make. Find your favorite video, share it with a friend. You're a major part of why we keep doing this. So sincerely, thank you for that. I can't wait to talk to you on the next Roll for Initiative. I'm Ryan, and I'll see you next time.
Goodbye.
No professional.